Hey everyone, welcome to My Wife the Dietitian, a weekly podcast about lifestyle and healthy eating. I'm Rob, and together with my wife Sandra, we invite you to join us on this informative yet entertaining journey through the complex world of healthy eating.
We'll cover everything but the kitchen sink. Each week we'll discuss topics ranging from how to protect yourself from developing cancer, spicy foods to rev up the libido, to caring for your palliative grandfather with Alzheimer's.
We'll also delve into more complex issues like, what the heck is oat milk? Why doesn't my butt fit into these jeans? And every guy's favorite question, will eating spinach really make it bigger? Join us each week as we strive to educate, enlighten, and entertain you.
Last week on Getting in the Mood with Food, Sexy Foods Part 1, Rob and I discussed the holistic overview of food as fuel and covered a myriad of happiness hormones and neurotransmitters that can be boosted naturally. Today, for Valentine's Day, Part 2 of Sexy Foods, we are talking about aphrodisiac foods to boost libido, foods with benefits. We will delve into 22 different whole foods, including specific fruits, vegetables, nuts, beans, seafood, herbs, with historic significance coming down through the ages, over centuries, even starting at the beginning of time to help Cupid with his bow and arrow. Feel your best with including Mother Nature's bounty to rev up your engines and feel happy.
And horny. Hey Sandra.
Hey Rob.
How's it going?
Excellent. We're just on Valentine's Day here.
Yes, we are. Happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you. And it's our part 2 of our Foods with Benefits, Sexy Foods.
Foods with benefits, and it's called, it's all about aphrodisiacs.
That's right, to boost libido.
Nice. And what's an aphrodisiac? You have a definition there, don't you?
Yeah, it's named after the Greek goddess Aphrodite. She's a Greek goddess of love and pleasure.
Ah, yes.
And they help to stimulate sexual desire, sexual attraction, sexual pleasure.
The Greek goddesses do.
Aphrodite did.
Aphrodite did, yes. I remember reading about her in Greek mythology in English class.
Oh,
Way back when.
And libido, the definition is it's sex drive and desire and arousal.
Ah, that makes sense.
So they're all connected with the aphrodisiacs.
Awesome. So today we're talking about different foods, right?
Exactly. And I think people often assume to increase libido, you must increase testosterone levels.
Ah, okay. Yeah, that rings a bell.
Yeah. And I mean, if you read in any men's magazine, that's what it talks about. But really, testosterone does influence sex drive, but it's not the only factor.
Right.
So there's you need to have lots of different vitamins and minerals to be, feeling your best and energetic. And so vitamins and minerals such as magnesium and vitamin D and B complex and zinc all help support healthy testosterone levels, but don't necessarily boost them.
Gotcha. Okay, that sort of makes sense.
Yeah. So it's kind of with anything, like if your intake is already adequate and sufficient, then you're getting enough sleep and physical activity and good, weight management, that all helps sustain healthy testosterone levels.
Right. Okay. That's good information.
But men with low testosterone, it's been associated with low libido and prior poor health comes like development of metabolic syndrome and also with depression if low testosterone in men and women.
Okay. And that's something you can test. I think I've seen blood tests for that or something, but Yeah.
So today we're talking about the 22 different foods, and we're going to go through each food with its history and folklore and the nutritional elements and benefits that make them aphrodisiac.
All right. Well, should we just get into it here then?
Sure. Yeah. So apple, you remember the first episode you said, yeah, apple, that's a weird one.
That is a weird one.
Except you think of the forbidden apple, the forbidden fruit.
Well, that's true.
Adam and Eve, right?
Huh.
That was the beginning of time. So actually, there was a study in the archives of gynecology and obstetrics that a regular daily apple helps women's sex lives. An apple a day.
Yeah, right? It keeps the doctor away. But that's, yeah, interesting.
Yeah, so I guess the polyphenols in it and the antioxidants help with blood flow to sexual organs and help with mood. So the skin in apples actually have a phytoestrogen, similar to soy, the estradiol. It's a sex hormone. So that's another relationship with apples and hormones and libido and aphrodisiac.
Oh, there you go. I didn't know that. Okay, next up.
Well, this is interesting. Actually, the pomegranate was some say the forbidden fruit of the Bible was not actually an apple, but it was a pomegranate fruit.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
And Aphrodite herself planted the first pomegranate tree because of its many seeds. It's associated with the fertility and abundance. It appears as a romantic symbol, and it's dating back centuries in poems and sonnets and literature.
Interesting.
And drinking pomegranate juice daily lowers cortisol levels and can correspond with increased testosterone production in both men and women.
There we go. Something to add to the shopping list.
And it also has the nitric oxide production when you take pomegranate.
Okay. Yeah, because that's important too for circulation.
Good, you remembered.
Oh, I made notes last week. Absolutely.
That's awesome.
I've been eating spinach and what else have I been eating since?
Well, what
Beets.
about oyster?
Beets. That's the new one that's in our fridge
Oh,
now,
yeah,
so
that's true.
I wonder if anyone else has changed their eating habits since the last week's podcast.
Yeah, beets are so delicious, eh?
Yeah, well, then they're cheap too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get a good size, like
Oh, yeah,
the
good
marinated.
size, you sure can.
Marinated. You're so funny. Not a can, but a jar of beets for $2 at our local grocery store.
Our beet supplier.
Yeah, it's how big would you say that jar is? Because it's really good value.
It's like a jar of pickles.
Yeah, exactly. And it's got that same. It's marinated, so
Yeah, they're delicious.
so good. Yeah, but oysters I want to talk about because they are one of the greatest of all aphrodisiacs.
I think it's probably the one that everybody thinks about with food and aphrodisiac foods.
Really? Yeah.
I would think so, yeah.
Well, it symbolizes virility and passion for all who indulge.
The look of it symbolizes that?
Well, they haven't. I guess, oysters have unleashed the powers of seduction and restored life to lagging libidos. They look like their sensual look. They fresh and jiggly, meaty. Some people represent them looking like masculine, similar to the male organs, testes, and for some feminine. So it looks like exposed and naked. So along with its visual sensuality, you think of the briny, salty flavor like the sea and smooth slip down your throat texture.
It's all very sensual.
It is, yeah. Loaded with zinc. So that's the nutritional benefit.
Okay. So it's not just the appearance; it's actually has something in it that has an effect as well.
Well, the zinc is a key ingredient of testosterone production and helps with sexual performance for both sexes.
Right.
I don't think people. You think you eat it and then you like right away you've got more. Sexual prowess and
it's not like coffee, instant.
It's not
rush.
Exactly. It's just a component. The zinc helps with the production, and so other foods do too. We talked about that before, like nuts and seeds, so having enough zinc in your daily intake will help with production of those hormones.
Right. Yeah, it's funny you see that in movie scenes where they're slurping oysters on their date night, and it's a little inaccurate, I guess, that they're not going to see instant results.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's the way you eat them too.
Sure.
Like, especially if it's fresh on the half shell, it's very sensual and
that's true. Yeah. But the chemical impact isn't going to be instant the way the visual impact is. So is that all you want to say about oysters? Is there more to discuss there?
Well, they're low in fat, high in complex carbohydrates and protein, and they offer that energy for sex.
Perfect.
So they are a good date night type food or Valentine's night. Next is avocado. So avocado, it's the Aztec word for testicle.
Really?
Yeah.
Avocado. Crazy.
Yeah, the avocado was deemed so powerful that they forbade village maidens to set one virginal toe outside the house while the fruit was being gathered.
Get out.
Seriously.
Can you imagine if we did that these days?
Well, and avocado, it's kind of, I'm going to talk about this with asparagus too, the doctrine of signatures or law of similarities, where it looks like something and so it has the function of that thing. So it's like the bumpy lizard-like skin peels away to reveal the creamy, natural, buttery texture. And if you cut it in half, pear-shaped symmetry mimics the soft, buttery curves of a woman.
It sure does.
And the avocado is the Aztec word for testicle, as I mentioned. So
interesting, eh?
Yeah, and it's funny. Is it a nut or seed? And is it a fruit or vegetable? It's there's nothing quite like the almighty avocado.
No kidding. They're so delicious too.
Oh yeah, like loaded with healthful monounsaturated plant fats, vitamin E to support the immune system and healthy skin, youthful skin, and can be used on toast or as a buttery spread instead of other spreads.
Nice. Yeah, it's so good. So good.
Oh, Louis the 14th, King of France, found his aging libido in need of revving, and he turned to this exotic fruit, the avocado.
Oh, really?
And nicknamed it the good pear.
The good pear.
Yeah. So chocolate is one of those amazing foods that represents love. If you think of Valentine's Day chocolates.
Exactly. I was going to say that is another one that's kind of an obvious, as far as love. I don't know if people think of sex with, oh, yeah, I guess you do.
Well, they have the sensual qualities of like sweet, buttery texture, creamy texture, melt in your mouth.
Right.
The rich smell. You could like melt it and drizzle it, dip your strawberry in chocolate.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
And it does have caffeine. So this one, that helps boost the blood flow, and it's a potent antioxidant.
Right, nice. So you're getting some actual health benefits from it too.
Yeah. And,
Nice.
I think the first one we talked about how it helps release serotonin and dopamine that helps to strengthen the libido and boost the sex drive, reduce stress and fatigue.
Right. Oh, I remember that was in the first episode.
Yeah.
Or first part one, I mean.
Part one, yeah. And Richard Cadbury packaged the first heart-shaped box of chocolate in 1861.
Oh, really? He was onto something.
Well, that's where it all started, right?
Yeah, I guess they knew those things back then. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and then Casanova ate chocolate to sustain his stamina.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Casanova, like the famous lover.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. So the caffeine helps with boosting circulation and blood flow and libido. And
I wonder if he was a famous lover when he was alive, or if he became famous later. Like, do you think he knew he was like this like renowned lover? I wonder, eh?
I don't know. They didn't have social media back then, but
Yeah,
the local villagers. So
it's quite the reputation, though.
I
right?
think he was on a horse though, and he galloped to different.
On a high horse.
Yeah, on a high horse. That's right.
Yeah.
So the next one is asparagus.
Oh, right. Like in our picture there, we had of the bouquet of asparagus I was propositioning you with.
That was awesome. Yeah. And people wonder why asparagus, but you look at the beautiful, thin, slender phallic symbol. And French lovers dined on 3 courses of the asparagus spears right before their wedding in hopes of increasing libido for the big night ahead.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
They're dripping with sensuality. And they do aid in cleansing the kidneys and urinary tract, as well as giving a dose of extra energy.
That explains the stinky pee.
Well, actually, the aspartic acid in asparagus helps neutralize excess ammonia in our bodies, which could ultimately lead to fatigue and sexual disinterest.
Oh, really? So there's a benefit to that process.
Yeah, yeah. So that's it's amazing. And asparagus are loaded with fiber and vitamin E, potassium, phosphorus, and calcium.
Right on. That's a pretty potent little stem there. A little phallic stem.
That's right. And the next one is kind of the opposite because it's more of a female type look to it, is the
Chickpea. No.
artichoke.
Oh, the artichoke. I'm just joking.
Yeah, it's the flower. So an artichoke is actually a flower, and it's a powerful aphrodisiac.
Really?
Well, the way it's eaten, you touch your food, undress it as you eat to get to the heart of it.
Ah, I see.
It's like layers and layers. And Greek mythology holds Zeus responsible for the creation of the artichoke.
You know what I'm thinking? This is kind of a tangent, but it's sort of related. I think the way people used to eat, it used to be more of an event where you would, you'd have these multi-course meals and you would take time to eat and enjoy it and savor it, and it would be a sensual experience. And now we just like power through to get on to the next thing that we got to do, or run out the door to our meeting or whatever we're doing. And we don't take time to enjoy our food the way, hundreds of years ago people used to eat.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree.
And so I think that part is missing, just the way you were describing that and how you undress it. And I'm like, well, who has time for that? Like, that's not how we are these days. But yeah, if you do that, I can see that it would have that potential for that kind of effect.
Yeah, yeah. And those foods also, I think they were linked with the aphrodisiac quality because they were rare or exotic or luxurious. Like not everybody could have a pomegranate tree, or not everybody could get oysters, so they were, nowadays it's so different. We have access to pretty much any food anytime we want. So
yeah, and they're all in various states that you can get them pickled or dried, or a box of puffed artichoke snack chips.
That's right, exactly. That's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, with the artichoke, it's tough on the outside and soft on the inside, and artichokes are hard to get. And after being rejected by a beautiful young woman, Zeus, god Zeus, turned his object of affection into a thorny and difficult thistle.
Oh, really?
That's the history of the artichoke.
The artichoke is actually was his object of affection. Oh, crazy. Greek mythology is so wacky.
I know. And there's actually a little bit about Catherine de Medici in Italy, known for her insatiable appetite for both food and romance. And she brought artichokes to France when she married King Henry.
Oh, yeah. And so then he figured out the power of the artichoke, I'm sure.
So there's so many here. Figs.
Oh, figs. Figs are so sensual.
Aren't they?
Oh, they're so sensual.
And like with Cleopatra, like when you eat a fig, you are tasting history. If you've never tasted a fresh fig before, it will not taste, smell, look, or feel as you thought it would.
Or like anything else you've ever tasted.
Yeah, because a ripe fig tastes sweeter than any dried nugget from a trail mix.
Oh, for sure.
But a plump, fresh fig smells gentler than a hyper syruped canned version.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not like ultra sweet like the fresh fig, but it's got this nice sweetness.
We've got a fig tree, and it's interesting because the perfect fig is only, there's like a tiny little window where the fig is perfect, and it's maybe 2 days. So up until that point, they're not quite ready, and after that point, they're done. So there's this tiny little window, which makes them that much more luxurious, I guess, and delicate
And rare.
And rare. Yeah, yeah.
Well, in saying that, it's interesting. In ancient Greece, the fig was believed to be a symbol of love, and the arrival of a new fig crop elicited a copulary ritual.
Interesting.
So, yeah, and I mean, as you said, it's just this short window. It's about a month long, maybe 6 weeks, where the figs are, and then by the end, all the birds are getting the ones on the top, and it's over.
Yeah, you can't do that nowadays. Can you imagine if with our fig tree? Okay, everyone gather around. Figs are ripe.
That's right. Well, and I think the way the fig is, like, it's that small pear-shaped delicacy, and it's got many seeds inside that represent fertility.
Right.
So the tiny edible seeds seem unending, weaving larger and larger upon layer of texture and flavor.
And then there's the fig leaf, right, which is back to Adam and Eve.
Well, it's the ultimate contradiction. I mean, having the modesty in its leaf to cover up, whereas you bite into a fig and it's the ultimate sensual fruit in its appearance and texture.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, it's very much an aphrodisiac.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And then it's loaded with nutrition like the antioxidants, flavonoids, fiber, and potassium.
Yeah, they're pretty healthy, hey?
Yeah, they're really good. And I mean, the fiber, people know them for, they're like prunes and dates and figs. So they're used for helping with keeping you regular.
Right, exactly. In more ways than one, by the sounds of it. What about grapes? They're kind of like figs too, hey? I'm thinking of like the grape. We've also got grapes here, so we're familiar with some of these. They've got the big leaf that's kind of like a fig leaf too, and the small fruit. And
yeah, it's actually got an ancient history also. They actually archaeologists found in the Egyptian tombs traces of wine.
Really?
And you know that wine comes from grapes.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a tradition to give clusters of freshly picked grapes to newlyweds. Or, the Greek god, enjoying grapes fed to him by all his harem.
Right. Yeah. You see that in all the pictures, right?
Yeah. And you think of it's sensual too. It's like kind of represents a female body. It's plump and luscious and has sweet juice.
Well then.
Yeah, it's very it's a sensual food, and wine served as a muse for poets and songwriters and dreams. It's got the symbol of romance, eroticism, debauchery, even with you think of alcohol and
alcohol and debauchery. Yes, they go hand in hand. Often.
Yeah, and then there's that special element in the red skins is the resveratrol. I never say that right.
That's
resveratrol.
Hard word to say.
Antioxidant. It's a polyphenol, and it's really good for heart health and longevity.
Oh, there you go.
And grapeseed oil can be used, and it's great for massage. And it's
I never thought of that.
Yeah, it's really good. It's also high in antioxidants and vitamin E, and
It's good for the skin too.
Good for the skin. That's right. So, using it for massage or grapeseed oil is good in salad dressings.
Hey, the human salad.
So the other things with grapes is there's fiber from the skin. There's vitamin K, which is linked with blood pressure and cognitive health. B2, vitamin B2, and B6. And remember, we talked about vitamin B6 and how it's used in synthesis of neurotransmitters. So it's just loaded, like vitamin C and potassium, manganese. It's a micromineral. So grapes are really nutritious too.
Wow, they're a powerhouse. That's amazing. Yeah, I didn't realize they were so full of nutrients.
I know, eh? Yeah. And you don't need to have a lot of them, just like a handful is.
Just a handful fed to you as you're lying on your bed with someone rubbing your feet.
That's right.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Got it.
All right.
And actually, it's funny because strawberries and grapes go hand in hand sometimes in terms of like the summer fruit. And strawberries are actually a symbol, like in ancient Rome, it was a symbol of Venus.
Which is another goddess or...
Yeah. They're the perfect little red Valentine, you think. The edible Valentine
Oh,
is
the shaped, yeah.
Yeah, it looks like a little heart. And it wears its seeds on the outside.
Oh, right.
So it's it's such an interesting fruit actually. In medieval Europe, strawberries were considered a symbol of good living, and they were thought better to be cooked to reap the benefits. So they boiled it and made jam.
Okay, right.
And then in the French countryside, there was once a tradition of serving newlyweds cold strawberry soup to help promote honeymoon romance.
Soup. Interesting.
Strawberry soup, yeah.
Strawberry soup. Probably pretty good.
But then you think of strawberry shortcake because kind of you get that similar strawberry jam, kind of a syrup. And when you serve it with whipped cream, you take it behind the closed bedroom door.
And etc. Yeah.
So strawberries are part of the rose family. So are raspberry and blackberries. And they do have lots of vitamin C.
Right.
And with all the seeds, lots of fiber. And the pectin is a soluble fiber. It's got magnesium and potassium and folate. So again, strawberries are a powerhouse of nutrition and that symbol of Valentine.
For sure. Yeah. Chocolate covered strawberries and foot massage.
That's right.
Yeah. Fun.
Okay, let's talk about beans.
Beans.
Beans and chickpeas.
All right, chickpeas.
So we're talking about black beans and chickpeas. So black beans, Saint Jerome, I guess in 40 AD, father of a Latin church, he first told his nuns about black beans. No touching, no eating, no pureeing or refrying.
Really?
Yeah, because they really, I guess their look and their shape and other features about them, he thought, well, the celibacy of nuns, black beans will increase fertility, and it's the smooth like pebble washed down by years of wear. It's you think of the fresh bean pod nestled in protective casing. It's rests like a child in its mum.
I have never thought of a bean that way before. It's it's crazy, some of these stories. Like, really?
Yeah, I know.
That's so ridiculous.
And with chickpeas, a physician in medieval times found the hidden qualities, and priests and scholars were banned from eating them.
Really?
Yeah, because chickpeas are a good source of zinc to help with the testosterone. They're high in fiber and protein, low in fat, vitamin C and B6, thiamine, niacin, and iron. And bean eaters tend to be leaner, healthier than those who don't eat beans.
No, we don't want that. So no beans for you.
Isn't that interesting?
That is so ridiculous.
Yeah,
wow.
well, because they were so, I guess they were a symbol of sexuality. Chickpeas and black beans. Let's talk about nuts.
Nuts. Let's talk about nuts. There's nothing sexual about nuts.
I knew you were going to say something
Well,
about that.
I'm a guy. How can I resist?
That's right. Well, that's funny. Actually, there's three we're going to talk about briefly here. The pine nuts, the Brazil, and pistachio.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, and the pine nuts are like the kernel of love. They're delicate and buttery and hard to come by, difficult to obtain, like to actually get to.
Like to harvest, you mean?
Yeah, to break open and eat.
Okay. And so, sorry, carry on.
Pistachios have arginine, which increases nitric oxide, and have the that is the same way that Viagra works to increase the blood flow.
Right.
And remember, we talked about Brazil nuts and the
Selenium.
Exactly. There we go. Yeah. And that contributes to healthy testosterone levels.
Oh, okay.
From the Kama Sutra to the perfumed garden to the Bible, honey has been connected with love, sex, and sensuality since the beginning of time.
Oh, honey.
So 5th century BC, Hippocrates prescribed it for sexual vigor. According to folklore, a bee sting was supposedly like being given a shot of pure aphrodisiac.
Oh, really? Interesting.
And there's a tradition in India, it calls for the bridegroom to receive honey on his wedding day.
Oh, I thought you were going to say like a bee sting as part of the ceremony.
No.
Okay, release the bees.
In past centuries, newlyweds go on a honeymoon, and that stems from an ancient tradition of couples going into seclusion and drinking the honey concoction, the fermented mead, until the first new moon of their marriage.
Wow, really?
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of locked away, and it's not kind of like today's honeymoons where you're sitting on a beach in Mexico.
Honey contains boron, which is a trace mineral that helps regulate hormone levels.
Okay.
And it's the nitric oxide is released in blood during arousal, and it helps circulation.
Right, back to that whole circulation thing again.
Yeah, and it is a symbol of fertility and procreation. You think the birds and the bees, and the golden images of drippy, sticky nectar of the flower, the viscous substance that's sweet.
Okay, now that's the sexual part right there.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. It's dripping off your toast in the morning, and yes. All right.
Lavender, the herb, has a sensual appeal of its fragrance, its buds, and it's used for enhancing love and health, and has calming yet stimulating at the same time.
Yeah, that's interesting about lavender, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah, that it can do both. Depending on how much you inhale it, I think determines its effect. Something like that anyway.
It's soothing without drowsiness. It's used in the Outlander series, and
I don't think any of the women know about Outlander. I don't think. Do people watch that show?
You're funny.
Yeah.
Well, an interview with Diane Gall.
Oh, Jamie.
Lavender has been a staple of gentlemen's cologne since the Middle Ages.
It does smell good. Like it's got a really nice scent.
It was also in Grey's Anatomy when Meredith's shampoo, and Derek loved Meredith's shampoo smell, her hair.
I don't think people know about that show either.
No,
Yeah,
exactly.
no.
So-
Dr. McDreamy and steamy.
So yeah, lavender is another one that's a herb that has is an aphrodisiac.
You know what's kind of interesting is when I used to work in my shop, I had a dust mask that I would wear, and I'd put a few drops of lavender oil in it to make it smell good, because they get kind of rank after a while.
Totally, that's a great idea actually, because it is that it's got that stimulating quality. So and soothing, and you know how sometimes I put a little bit of lavender under my pillow. It's for that reason. The soothing.
I thought it was for the
calming.
tooth fairy. No.
Well, it's interesting because another herb that I want to talk about is rosemary, and they suggest putting the rosemary in your under your pillow. Kind of, it promotes pleasant dreams.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that's one that's a really interesting one. It's associated with memory, and some believe its strong, earthy aroma can be used as a Pavlovian call to passion and love.
Oh, really? If you, eat it or smell it or?
Just the smell. Medieval women allured men with their rosemary scented bathwater. It's got that piney evergreen smell.
Oh, interesting.
And in Shakespeare, in Hamlet, Ophelia said, "There's rosemary, that's for remembrance."
Oh, the Shakespeare.
So again, remembrance, it's associated with memory.
Right.
They first thought it was named after Virgin Mary, rosemary, but then people said it was named for Aphrodite and Venus. Many early depictions of the goddess of love was portrayed clutching or wearing a sprig of rosemary.
Oh, wow.
And I love this poem that I found in this book. It's the book called Intercourses, an Aphrodisiac Cookbook.
Right.
They talk about the rosemary. So, and I'm going to put your name in instead of the person's name that she's got here.
Okay.
It's Leanne from Arizona. And she said, fresh rosemary is not something that I normally include on my grocery lists. Honestly, I didn't even know where to find it. So when I began chopping up this herb and its piney scent filled my kitchen space, I was slightly amazed. Its prickly needles smelled so warm and outdoorsy, like Rob. Rob is all leather and flannel.
Oh, Leanne, stop.
All Robert Redford and Paul Bunyan, all for one and all Canadian. She says American. And although you'd never get him to admit it, Rob is totally rosemary.
Oh, well then.
Isn't that awesome? It's a cool, I like that poem. It's so true. Like you just think of rosemary just smells like you're out in the forest and that piney, fragrant.
It's got a great scent to it. It is really strong and it's got a punch, a good punch.
Absolutely. And you can steep it in the water as tea and it calms the nerves.
Oh, nice. I've never thought of that.
And rosemary oil can increase circulation and increase your sensitivity to touch.
Oh, that's the sexual part.
And that might be another good one for massage, using for when you're massaging someone.
Yeah, it could be, hey? Good idea.
Basil is considered a royal herb of the Greeks. The Greeks called the plant royal, and it's a sacred herb in India. And you just think of the buttery leaves, the beautiful, fragrant, uplifting, cheerful scent. In the Haitian lore claims basil comes from the goddess of love, Azuli.
Azuli.
In aromatherapy, it's used to combat depression and anxiety, and those things can be libido killers.
Oh, of course.
And basil, you use it in cooking and like in pesto. It's full of flavonoids, anti-inflammatory properties. The essential oil of basil inhibits antibiotic-resistant bacteria. It's an antioxidant. All the vitamins and minerals that it has are linked with sexual health and fertility, like vitamin A and C, manganese, folate, the green leafy part of it, vitamin K, and it helps with preventing erectile dysfunction. And there's 50...
By eating it?
Yeah, yes.
Or sprinkling it on?
Eating it, and over 50 varieties of the plant.
Interesting. Huh. This is an interesting shopping list. If you're going to include all these things in your diet to stimulate things.
Well, with all of the herbs, we just grow them. Like, let's just grow them because then they're ongoing. You get them; they're in your, in your kitchen.
Just mean in including it in your daily eating.
Yeah.
I guess it's there's some neat things on this list.
Oh yeah, and then using herbs is so healthy instead of using more salt. So that's the other thing with using various herbs in cooking.
Well, yeah, it makes your food like that. We were saying before about making eating a more sensual experience. Herbs, fresh herbs especially, will do that. Gives it that just exotic flavor.
Absolutely, yeah. Fennel and anise are plants which have been used as estrogenic agents for millennia. It's reputed to increase libido, and the essential oil of fennel and anise tastes like licorice, and they have this active estrogenic agent that it's actually like a pharmacological effect called a photoantol.
Interesting. And fennel, we have fennel in our garden, right?
Oh yeah, we have so much fennel. It spreads like mint.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like gets tall like corn does, and it's just like big and bushy, and it's delicious. Just eating like the leaves, I guess. Is that like the feathery
little seeds?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. just handfuls of it. It's delicious.
I know remember when we went to East Indian restaurants, they'd have fennel as something you eat after, like instead of giving you a mint after dinner, you'd have a little fennel seed.
Yeah, like a little dish of seeds, right?
Yeah, it's that licorice.
Huh.
And it's probably helps with digestion too.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think I remember hearing that. What about chilies? That's kind of,
you think of the red hot spicy chilies.
Yeah, they've got some kind of punch too, don't they? For the sexual.
Yeah, it's long believed to house a complete arsenal of aphrodisiac powers. You spice up your dish and your love life with the fiery heat of chili peppers. They can spice up an entire meal, an evening, and a date night. And actually, it's funny because you're laughing, but Montezuma was said to drink a chili and chocolate drink in order to have the strength for his harem of women every day. And, they call the Montezuma's revenge because the chili is so hot and spicy that you end up having, the next day is like, oh, I've got
the ring of fire.
That's right.
No, the reason I was laughing is years ago we had a friend who told us that he had a first date with this woman and he was cooking her dinner and he was cutting up all these chilies for their dinner and then he went to the washroom and forgot to wash the chilies off his hand. And
oh my God.
I guess it got on him in the wrong place.
Burned his sensitive place. Oh.
Burning his little man, and he had to cancel the date. So, yeah. So, yeah, spicing up your date, but in the wrong kind of way.
Be careful with that. That's right. Well,
Yeah.
Dr. John Kellogg, the founder of Kellogg's, advised nymphomaniacs to stay away from peppers as they get you too fired up with the heart pumping, blood rushing, face flushing, body warming, and pore sweating. And it's all similar reactions to a goodnight kiss or a heated quickie at lunchtime.
Interesting. Right?
Yeah. Well, it causes the body to release endorphins, which boosts the mood and surge in energy. It's kind of like the runner's high that we talked about, and it's a natural painkiller. So chilies are quite a interesting addition to a dish.
Absolutely. I love spicy food. I love the effect it has. And I think people who like spicy food are the same. They like to sweat. They like to feel like their blood pumping. And it just makes your eating experience that much more kind of lively. It's like a roller coaster ride and you're just like
vibrant,
adrenaline pumping kind of.
Yeah, the opposite of bland, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I can see that for sure.
Ginger is another aphrodisiac food.
What about Marianne? I feel bad about Marianne. Everyone's talking about ginger all the time, but poor Marianne.
Well, we talked about rosemary, but I guess that's a little different.
Yeah.
You're funny. You always talk. Every time I ever say the word ginger, you always say Marianne.
I liked Marianne.
And you're talking, of course, with the Gilligan's Island.
Marianne is highly underrated, I found. But anyway, that's a tangent. Carry on, ginger.
Okay, it's a root, and the folklore European maidens would bake gingerbread and eat it in the hopes that it would turn into a real husband.
That's like the frog and the prince.
That's so funny.
That's funny.
Oh, it's got that invigorating scent and sharp flavor.
Yeah, it certainly does.
And if you think of it has several different forms. So if you eat it straight, it's very zippy and hot on the tongue. If you cook it, it transforms into a more subtle, spicy, sweet flavor. And if you mix it with sugar, you have this ginger chew that's got a sticky, intense nectar flavor.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like spicy, like the same kind of effect that spice has, right?
Like chilies.
Like chilies,
Yeah. But it's funny because it actually does the opposite. So you think of ginger ale, and it's got ginger in it, and it's cold and bubbly, and it soothes the stomach when you have nausea. So the medicinal qualities of ginger helps with nausea and calms motion sickness, alleviates migraines, thins the blood. So that's where it gets that aphrodisiac quality.
Oh, because it circulates better?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. It helps with blood flow, circulation, and engorges the body's most sensitive areas.
Sensitive areas.
Now, coffee, something that a lot of people drink. It's one of the most common beverages in the world next to tea. But coffee is the aphrodisiac because if you think of the dark, rich, full-bodied, pleasing scent, the flavor is bitter.
Well, it's like a sharp bite to it.
Yeah, and it stimulates the heart and increases adrenaline levels, the caffeine in it.
Nice.
And it causes more blood flow below the belt.
That again.
So it increases the strength of orgasms, actually.
I've read that. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think coffee would do that or have that effect, but yeah, I guess there's things
Well,
in
it helps with the dopamine. Remember we talked about the neurotransmitter dopamine and how some of the things you do every day can help boost dopamine? Well, drinking some coffee can do that too.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and then there's alkaloids in the coffee that can help to maintain sexual performance and stamina.
Well, that sort of makes sense. Given the boost of energy you get from coffee, I can see the stamina part.
Yeah, and it's loaded with antioxidants and phytochemicals. And if you think of, it's a social thing. So when you offer someone coffee, you're welcoming them to sit down and stay a while. And friendliness is always attractive.
For sure.
Maca is, some people use maca root. There's not a ton of evidence to suggest that it works to increase testosterone, but it is supposed to be, it has mood lifting effects, and it's the Latin American ginseng or Peruvian ginseng.
Yeah, it's from Peru, right? It's a root, I think, and it's usually in a powdered form that you use it on food. It's got a nutty flavor to it. And
Peruvian Viagra, actually.
Peruvian Viagra, that's right. Yeah, there you go. I think ginseng's another one of those that's kind of got rumored effects sexually, but
yeah, there's so many foods with benefits. 22 different foods that we covered: apple, pomegranate, beets, oysters, avocado, chocolate, asparagus, artichoke, figs, grapes, strawberries, black beans and chickpeas, nuts like pine nuts, pistachios, and Brazil nuts, honey, lavender, rosemary, basil, fennel and anise, chili peppers, ginger, coffee, and maca root.
That's quite the list, and it's going to be quite the shopping list.
Well, in reviewing all of our foods that we talked about, the fruits and vegetables, nuts, beans, seafood, nowhere did we mention ultra-processed or fast foods.
Yeah, there's no Doritos on this list.
That's right. And you think of where is your food coming from, and you think of the history of that food and the Garden of Eden, and you think of where its origins are. That's real food. So if you eat more real food, you feel better. When all your physiological systems, along with your psychological well-being, are in harmony and balance, you're bound to be more open to more pleasurable sexual experiences.
And that's what it's all about, right? Who doesn't want that? Right. I guess that's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
That is a sexy food wrap.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah, happy Valentine's Day. We'll be back next week with, who knows, we'll surprise you with something fun. All right, cheers. Thanks for joining us today on My Wife the Dietitian. If you like what you heard, don't be shy. Leave us a comment or review, and be sure to share our podcast with your friends. If you'd like to hear more, hit that subscribe button. You can also follow us on our social media pages for updates, episode trailers, and other odds and ends. For more info and links on what we discussed on today's episode, check the show notes. We'll be back next week with another informative and fun-filled episode.